Large-scale data centers are popping up across Wisconsin. But what happens when residents near proposed sites have no idea what's being built in their communities? Wisconsin Watch reporter Tom Kircher recently followed up on a tip discussing non-disclosure agreements in cities like Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. Meta, the trillion-dollar company that owns Facebook and Instagram, is currently constructing a complex on a 520-acre plot of land in the city of 16,000 people.
So this story actually is a result of an email sent in by a Wisconsin Watch reader. And that reader wanted us to take a look at some of the larger data centers being proposed around the state. Kind of parenthetically, the reader made mention of non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, and that term really caught my attention. So Wisconsin Watch did a story about data centers, but more specifically, how local governments take steps to keep the public in the dark about them. So one step that's been taken by local governments in Wisconsin is to sign what are called non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs. It's a contract. They bind the city or the village or the town and the company that wants to build a data center. It binds them to confidentiality. Not only can't speak of the project itself, but in some cases the NDAs even don't use the words data center. So advocates for the non-disclosure agreements say that they're truly necessary to promote economic development. If I'm a company that wants to build a new data center somewhere, I don't necessarily want my competition knowing that I'm looking at Beaver Dam or DeForest. The question becomes, though, since these projects are so transformational, they affect land use, environment, taxes, the economy, at some point the public needs to be brought in so that it can weigh in on these proposals. And the question is, when should that be done?
Stella loves treats. Don't you, Stella? Yes, I do.
In Prescott Balch's hometown of Caledonia, a village in Racine County, the proposed Microsoft data center was canceled after public opposition.
We are fiercely guarding of our open space and rural charm, and felt like this was going to destroy that. So we coordinated lots and lots of people at Village Hall, growing numbers every time they met, and eventually we convinced them that it really was a bad idea, and Microsoft pulled the proposal at the 11th hour.
Balch says in July of 2025, a fellow resident of Caledonia discovered a rezoning sign, leading the community to investigate. They soon discovered the company Dewberry was quietly moving a data center project along as a representative of Microsoft.
So very few people were actually notified, and it frankly backfired. It made the community members madder and more suspicious of bad behavior. I just think we were in over our heads as a village. We didn't know how to do it right. We should have slowed down. We should have had town halls. We should have been open. It should not have been just a couple of staff members talking to a Fortune 50 company about a multi-billion-dollar deal in our backyard.
Some people in local government that have tried to keep data center proposals quiet, they emphasize that no final decisions are ever made until there are public votes in front of a city council, for example. But what critics say is that so much happens behind the scenes to prepare these development proposals that by the time they're announced to the public has little time to react. We're talking about, in many cases, multi-billion-dollar, hundreds of acres projects. And sometimes the public has found that these projects are kept in the dark for so long, then they're sort of sprung on the public, if you will, not giving residents enough time to digest what's being proposed, ask questions, and raise objections if they want to.
There are currently 7 major data center projects in Wisconsin. 3 of them are under construction, and 4 of them are in various stages of being proposed or approved. And recently, Grant County has been eyed for a new $1 billion data center project. One example of an NDA used in data center planning comes from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, where local officials signed an agreement with a company proposing a $1 billion data center.
Initially, even the name of the company was kept confidential. It turned out to be Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram. But for more than a year after that non-disclosure agreement was signed, there were preparations made to try to pave the way for that data center. before any public announcement was ever made. But the city council did approve it, and it's now under construction. Some local governments that don't use non-disclosure agreements have kept the data center proposals quiet in a different way. So in DeForest, a suburb north of Madison, that city did not use an NDA, but it took steps to keep the project quiet for at least 7 months before any public announcement was made. There were behind-the-scenes negotiations between village government staff and the data center company, and those came to light only after an announcement some 7 months later. During a public meeting about the data center proposal in November, the village president told the audience that, hey, village board members have only known about this proposal for a couple of weeks. But we were able to find that, in fact, village trustees had been informed about the proposal at least a couple of months earlier, were offered one-on-one meetings with the data center company. And that helped lead to more opposition in DeForest because people felt they were being misled. Once it became disclosed, there was a lot of public opposition. And actually, a day after our story was posted, DeForest decided that it will not pursue the data center.
With his usual flair, comedian and podcaster Charlie Berens has spotlighted Wisconsin's data centers for a wider audience, even breaking the news for some community members.
Port Washington, Wisconsin just approved a massive AI data center because apparently the Common Council got blackmailed by a robot. Folks, that's why you only send fish packs. Here is what the data center is going to look like.
I think it's absolutely insane that I had to hear that this was happening from Charlie Berens and that I didn't get a letter from my mayor.
Berens sat down with Wisconsin Watch's Tom Kircher on his show Old Fashioned Interview to discuss the transparency, or lack thereof, of these data centers.
Before the residents are ever brought in on the deal.
I mean, to me, that seems like the exact opposite of how democracy is supposed to work.
Yeah, I mean, what got me interested in the topic of data centers is just wanting, the people of Wisconsin to decide the future for their communities. And when it comes to data centers, it really seemed like the future of a community was in the hands of these trillion-dollar companies and, the politicians they've talked to well before the people even knew what was going on. So it didn't seem fair to me for people to take on all the risk.
Local elected officials are really in a place where they need to respond to regain trust of the people. Don't hide behind NDAs. Don't hide behind 2-minute public comment. The best thing that any community could do right now is to wake up to the fact that your elected officials can change your town overnight and you didn't know it. Read their agendas, ask questions, go to meetings, run for office if you're really concerned. But you have to at least be aware of what they're doing, because they have the ability to not just make these big decisions, but they can do it really quickly.
So in late January, a state lawmaker introduced a bill that would prohibit non-disclosure agreements for data centers. More specifically, it would prohibit local governments from signing those NDAs when they were considering data centers. We are looking to see whether there are more large-scale data centers being proposed in Wisconsin, and whether any of those might also have non-disclosure agreements that keep them from being revealed to the public.
And if people out there have scoops on stories for you, like they see something going on in their community, whether it's data center related or otherwise, how do they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, the story we talked about on secrecy came from a reader, so we're always looking for suggestions. So folks can go to wisconsinwatch.org. You'll see something called Submit a Tip, and that's a way to provide us information on suggestions that you have for things we should look into.